listening to Real Estate Insiders Radio, featuring successful real estate insiders, influencers, and trendsetters sharing proven tips and strategies to help you navigate the complex world of real estate right now.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's show. I'm your host, Felicia Phillips Curtis. Today's show is sponsored by ProsperTour.com, your go-to partner for real estate investment solutions. Connect at ProsperTour.com today, and you too will prosper when you buy or sell your investment property. ProsperTour.com, where real estate investments produce cash, clarity, and calm. Call 800-5-SOUTH-1. It is your time to prosper. I have an exciting show planned for you today. We are coming from a totally different angle in real estate, something that is quite unique. I have the honor of interviewing this morning Seth Williams on this morning's show. Seth Williams is a full-time land investor and residential income property owner with nearly a decade of experience in the commercial banking industry. He is also the founder of retipster.com, a real estate investing blog that offers real-world guidance for part-time real estate investors like myself and some of you. In fact, I have utilized Seth's services, which is why I reached out to him and thought he would be an excellent person to share his gift with us today. Welcome to the show this morning, Seth.
Thanks for having me, Felicia. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Land investing is something that we have not talked about yet on the show. So you are our premier guest in this particular arena, and I am excited to learn about what you're doing in detail, and I know that others will benefit from that information as well. Tell me, now, who do you help exactly? When you say land investing, what are you doing, and who are you assisting?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got into land investing almost about 10 years ago now, and the reason I got into it was because at the time in my life, I had been spending a lot of time trying to find good deals on like houses to flip or like duplexes to buy and then rent out. And I was just looking on the MLS, like on the open market, for properties that were listed with agents. And man, I was having such a hard time finding good deals that would actually cash flow, that would actually make sense from an investment standpoint. And it was around that time that I discovered the land business. And land is one of those things that a lot of people don't really think about because, you know, people just assume it's not a rental property. There's no tenant. There's no cash flow. Why would I want land? It just sits there and nothing happens. And that's actually a great thing, because with the way I buy land, I'm able to buy it from people who are very highly motivated to sell. And the way I find those people, there's a few different ways. But, you know, the typical motivated seller for land is somebody who, you know, maybe they bought the property years ago. Maybe they plan to like retire and build their dream home there. But as time went on, their plans changed, and maybe they moved away, or they just, you know, they don't want to do that anymore. For one reason or another, they've got this piece of dirt sitting there, and they're paying this tax bill for it. And it's just an annoyance. It's a nuisance in their life. And because they don't need it to live, it's just kind of this extra thing on their plate. It just kind of becomes, you know, a problem. And I'm able to go in there. I make really, really low offers to people. And a lot of people say no, but, you know, some people say yes. And when they do say yes, I'm able to close very quickly, you know, with very minimal paperwork, and I can pay them cash because, you know, my offers are generally low. And I don't need financing or any of that stuff. I can close very quickly and just sort of make their problem go away. So that's the first kind of person that I help, is somebody who owns land and they don't want it, and I can just make it really easy and take it off their hands. And then the other kind of person I help is the person who is looking to buy land. You know, somebody who does want to buy their dream property or their retirement, you know, piece of land where they're going to go build their house. And I'm able to offer them that land at prices that are way below market value because I bought it for so cheap to begin with. So all the way around, it just kind of makes sense for both the person that sells it to me and the person that buys it from me.
Yeah, well, I haven't thought about land, and I'm sure, like you say, a lot of other investors aren't taking land seriously. In fact, I recently did a marketing campaign to a small town in Georgia, and in order to find residential property, and didn't really find the ideal property. All of the residential property that I found was not in areas of that community that I wanted to invest in. But there were people who had land, and that just kind of went right over my head. I didn't even make an offer on those lots of land, but some of them, again, was because that particular part of the town I didn't find valuable. Is there particular areas that you try to focus on? Does it need to be, how you have the A, B, and C type properties and given communities? How do you figure out, what land is good land? And I mean, like you said, it's a lot, it's dirt. What's a good piece of land to invest in?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, typically, I mean, if I have my pick, I mean, usually what I'm going for is larger acreage that's in a rural area. But, I'll definitely look at properties that are closer to bigger populations, smaller properties that are in maybe existing subdivisions. Pretty much the only kind of land that I am not interested in is land that's either so small that it's useless, like say if it's, like 0.01 acres, so it's just, you can't do anything with it, or land that is like in just a terrible part of town, because typically, when people buy land, especially when it's a small lot, I mean, the best feasible use for that in most cases is to build a house. And most people are not going to be building a brand new house in, the ghetto armpit of a city. So
right.
As long as it's a property that has at least one or two solid feasible uses and is just sort of desirable from those standpoints, then I'm totally interested in that. And I mean, really, the whole idea of land going right over your head, I think it goes over most people's heads. And that's part of why land is a really nice type of property to work with. I don't want to say there's like no competition out there, but there is very, very, very little competition. Like I know a lot of times when I would make offers on houses, like in my town right now, Grand Rapids, it's just going nuts. I mean, there is no inventory on the market. If I make an offer over their asking price, there's like 10 people lined up behind me. So it's kind of crazy.
Right.
But with land, it's like when I make an offer, I mean, there's almost never another person who's making an offer at the same time I am. I mean, to that seller, I'm pretty much their only out. So it just, from that standpoint, it gives you a lot of negotiating power. And, I don't want to say you're always going to get the acceptances, but I mean, when you do, it's a slam dunk.
Wow. That is amazing. And how do you find the people who want to buy it? Because you don't want to get stuck with the tax bill indefinitely, or, something that is not income producing, that is just sitting there. How do you find buyers of that land?
Yeah, that's a great, totally valid question. That was like one of my biggest fears when I first got into this business, because at the time it was like 2008 and I was in Michigan and things were just terrible. I mean, real estate was not a good thing that people wanted to get into, especially in Michigan. But even then, I mean, most of the properties that I bought, I was able to sell usually in anywhere from a couple weeks to a few months. And part of the reason I was able to do that is because, when I buy these properties, I'm typically getting them for like around 10% of market value. So we're talking like very, very, very low prices. And because I'm getting all this free equity and a huge built-in profit margin, I'm able to list it for, 50% of market value, maybe, give or take a little bit. And, people see, wow, there's value here. I mean, even if I don't do anything immediately with this, like I'm getting free equity if I buy this. So I'm just able to offer a lot more value to the market than any other land seller around me, because everybody else is asking for full market value, but I can offer a huge discount. And I also offer seller financing on a lot of these deals. So, it makes sense for them because they don't have to talk to a bank. And a lot of times banks won't even lend on vacant land. So I'm really giving them a way to buy when they otherwise wouldn't be able to do that.
Wow. So you're basically, I mean, you're solving a major problem for people who feel stuck with property, with basically land that at one point looked like a major, a wonderful investment, but they basically have not followed up on, and they're sitting on, and it's costing them money. You come in, you basically take that off of their hands quickly with cash, and then you're also helping me if I am at my retirement age and ready to build something, and I'm trying to find the least expensive way to move forward. You're coming to me with a piece of land that is very inexpensive. I mean, something that I would have to really, really do some research to try to find at that price. And you've got it right there, and I saved money, a significant amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that is wonderful. Now, land buyers, with the price of building, are you dealing with a smaller segment of buyers, though, with land, Seth?
Yeah, I would say compared to like your typical single-family home, I would say there's definitely a smaller pool of buyers for vacant land. But part of it depends on what that buyer wants to do with the land, because I mean there can be a bunch of different potential uses for land depending on the zoning and the location and the size and all this. I mean, I would say probably the most common use for land, if I'm selling it to the end user, is they want to build a house or something someday. It doesn't need to be right now, but they just want to get that land squared away so they have the location nailed down. So they don't necessarily need to justify building now. It's just, at some point I'm going to do this. But say if somebody wants to like go camping or find a place to park their RV, and not every township and city lets you do that, but assuming the area does, it could be used for that. People could do farming. They could plant a garden. I mean, all kinds of different things you could do. And usually when I find my buyers, surprisingly, I've listed, I've sold hundreds of properties like this, and on I think 2 occasions I've tried to use a real estate agent to list the properties I'm trying to sell. And I don't know if it's because real estate agents don't deal with land that often, or I don't know what the deal is, but in both cases, I was able to find the buyer before they were. And all I was doing was listing the properties on places like Craigslist and Zillow for free. So really, a real estate agent, I mean, I don't want to say, I think they do bring some value to the table because the MLS is a solid audience that, is worth recognizing. But, I can't say that I've needed that, just because, I mean, Craigslist is a massive audience as well, as is the people looking on websites like Zillow.
Right.
And they're both, free outlets where I can find buyers. So it really hasn't been that hard. And I would say, like, in the worst case scenario, I think the longest I've ever been stuck with a property is about 15 months. And it's a kind of thing where, like, pretty much every property is going to sell eventually. It's just a matter of getting the pricing right and then getting the property information in front of enough eyeballs so that the right buyer sees it at the right time. I think that marketing push is there. And if you're meeting them where they are in terms of offering them the right price or the right kind of terms and financing, pretty much any property is sellable.
Wow. Well, what's really interesting is you're offering financing.
Yeah. It's it's in my best interest to do so in a lot of those cases because, say if I buy a property for, I don't know, a couple $1,000, and then I sell that property for, say, $30,000 or $40,000, if I get a down payment from them of, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, or even, honestly, even nothing for that matter. I usually don't do that, but it doesn't take long until, all of my costs are covered by their monthly payments. And then from there on out, for the next 3 or 5 or 10 years, every payment they're making me is pure profit because I've already covered my investment either with the down payment or very, very shortly thereafter. So it's way to create cash flow without any payments that I have to make because, all of my costs are, more than covered from the outset.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't repeat enough. Most of us don't even begin to think of this as an option, only because of that fear that you talked about earlier of being stuck with a piece of land, just like the owners who you buy from have been.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful and exciting business model. Now, you are solving those problems now for both ends. What are one or two popular misconceptions about what you're doing right now in the land industry?
Yeah. Well, I think it just kind of depends on who is having that misconception. For example, for people who are looking to sell their property, a lot of times they'll see my ridiculous offer and they'll say, "No way, this is crazy." And I don't blame them because it is way, way below market value, and I'm not trying to force them to do anything that they don't want to do.
Right.
But I think a lot of people who are selling land or who have land they don't want, they sort of they don't have the proper experience to know. A lot of times it's like if you're just Joe landowner and you've never really sold real estate before, and you're trying to sell that land at market value or a higher offer than what I'm giving them, it's actually not that easy because you have to know how to advertise it. You have to know where to advertise it. You have to understand the closing process. You just have to understand how to get exposure that I know how to do, but the average person doesn't know how to do. Right. And they also don't understand that, the average piece of land, if you just put it on the market at full market value, unless it's like a phenomenal location, usually it's going to take a long time to sell. And that's why in pricing it, way below market value or giving seller financing or both, it's kind of like a required thing if you want to sell the land quickly. I don't want to say you have to do it, but I would plan on factoring that into the whole equation when you buy and sell a piece of land, because otherwise it's just gonna take too long. And a lot of people, when they see my offer, they say no, assuming that they can do it on their own and they can get a lot more money. And that may be true in some cases, but they kind of don't understand what they're signing up for when they go down that road. So a lot of times people will say no, and they'll be all mad at me or something like that. And so we just part ways. And a lot of times I get calls from them 6 or 12 or more months down the road from them saying, I guess we are sort of interested now. Can we revisit this again? And that's not at all uncommon. I think people just need to believe it for themselves, and they need to see how hard it is before they'll kind of, come back to the table and realize, okay, maybe what you're offering me isn't that terrible of a deal.
Right. So really the only reason, is there any other reason why a person wouldn't want to buy from you other than price?
In terms of the people who buy it from me, from their standpoint, if I was them, the thing I'd be most concerned about is like, what is the highest and best use for this property, and can I use it for the thing that I want to use it for? And a lot of times that's really not an issue. I would say some people, they don't understand zoning laws and that kind of thing, and they'll just buy a piece of land assuming it's just land. I can do whatever I want. That's not necessarily the case. And so maybe like a lack of research on their end, just understanding what can be done with the property. And I try to do as much research as I can on the front end and make them aware of everything I know. So, if I know what the zoning is, I'll tell them. But a lot of people, they just kind of go in with their blinders on and they just assume they can do whatever they want to do. And it's just not really the case. So I guess that's probably one of the more common misconceptions from the people who try to buy land.
Right. Well, it's just amazing that you have managed to come up with a niche where you can escape, for lack of better words, the rat race of there being so much competition right now in the investment world for particularly residential. I'm not sure about commercial as much. And you've figured out a way to make this work and has made it so lucrative by packaging it with your being the bank in the works. I mean, it is just amazing. Now, you are also doing a blog on real estate investing. Is that pretty active as well?
Yeah. There's, at this point in time, I think there's like a couple 100,000 people a month that are coming by the blog and checking it out. So it's definitely a growing audience, and it's something I've been running since 2012 because I just knew at that point in my investing career there were a lot of things that I had learned along the way, and I just knew, man, if I could have talked to myself years ago, this is what I would have told myself. Like, do this, not that. Watch out for this issue. Here's a little trick you can try to, here's a little shortcut, things like that. And it's really the reason I started the blog. I wasn't really a blog person for the longest time. I didn't understand why people really read them. But back in mid-2012, when I started it later that year, I had discovered another blogger out there whose name was Pat Flynn. He runs a website called smartpassiveincome.com, and I was blown away by what this guy was doing. He was writing just like amazing content, like seriously valuable stuff that I would have paid lots of money for, but he was doing it all for free. Like, he wasn't charging anything for it, and it was like life-changing stuff. And I was like, man, I would love to be that guy for real estate investors. Like, I was so impressed by what he was doing. And so really, I mean, I don't want to say I do everything exactly like him, but that was kind of like the original inspiration. And I try to kind of model that approach as much as I can, just because I know it was super helpful to me. And I know, what I'm doing has been really helpful to a lot of other people too. So, yeah, I mean, the blog is just a place where I talk about a lot of things related to land investing, rental properties, productivity stuff, technology that I'm using right now in my business. Just really, I mean, whatever has been making a difference to me lately, that's what I like to talk about on the blog, and also do lots of videos and tutorials and things like that. So,
now, what is the name of the blog? I have definitely visited the blog myself on several occasions. Can you tell us how to find it?
Yep, it is retipster.com. So that's retipster.com.
An excellent resource for information and tools for investors. I did notice that you basically mentioned that you help part-time investors, but you're probably an asset to full-time investors as well, quite frankly, because your blog is chock full of information. And when you add some of the tools that have helped you be successful as well, it's amazing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was, that whole tagline of real world guidance for part-time real estate investors. My whole idea behind that was, at the time I was part-time. I guess you could say I'm still sort of part-time because I don't spend 40 hours a week just doing my land business. There's lots of other stuff I have going on, but I think most people who are doing real estate investing are doing it part-time. Either they're just getting started or they have other things going on besides just that part of their life. I just knew I had a lot of time constraints and just mental energy constraints I had to deal with. And, every hour really needed to matter and be very productive and really get me somewhere. So I sort of try to keep that in mind with the things I talk about is, like, we don't have lots of time to waste here. Like, we need to get right into this and make this matter very quickly. So that's kind of why I named it that.
Well, I that's funny you mentioned that, because I did read, I believe, on somewhere on either your website or on your blog where you had basically a pie chart of how you spend your time. Does that sound familiar? With the largest percentage of it being, of course, with land investing, and with other avenues as well, including your blog. Can you talk about that pie chart and what the day in the life of Seth Williams is like?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think something that a lot of people who don't have the entrepreneurial mindset have a really hard time grasping this. I have these conversations. I don't know if I say a lot, but from time to time with people where, if I put in X number of hours, I better be getting X number of dollars from that. Like that's kind of the mindset that most of us are brought up to think with. But like that's just not how it works when you're starting a business. Like you got to just do hours and hours and hours and hours of work with really, you don't get paid at all for it. I mean, it's kind of, there's no guarantee you're going to make money. That's just what it takes to start something. You don't know what's going to pay off in the end. But the beauty is, once you get it up and running and once you've proven the business model, you get to a point where you get paid, thousands of dollars per hour, and you get thousands of dollars when you don't even do anything. And that's the I guess the penalty for success in business is that, the whole thing of trading dollars for hours, it's just not a thing anymore. It's a more question of, is what I'm doing going to actually generate results on the back end? And sometimes I think you just have to kind of play with it. Like there's no way of really knowing until you just start doing stuff and seeing what works. But once you do know what works, it's just a matter of working that system and really just putting your nose to the grindstone and continuing to do those activities that are really going to pay off. And it's one of those things where, especially when you're starting, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow if you've never done it before, but you just have to realize, I'm putting a lot of time into this one area of my work life right now, and it may not pay off for, over a year from now, who knows, but, I have reasonable certainty that it will at some point if I continue to do this. And that's part of the reason I put those pie charts together is just to illustrate that. And, I think those percentages can change a lot over time. There will be at one point you'll spend lots of time on one thing that won't pay off really at all. Then, a couple of years down the road, that pie chart can shift dramatically and look totally different. Honestly, it probably should, or you're doing something wrong. But it's just kind of interesting.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying that's kind of an interesting concept, how that all works.
Well, you seem very, very disciplined and very strategic. I was just curious, do you have a work schedule? Like from 8 to 9, I'm checking emails, or from 10. Are you that structured? Because when I look at some of what you write and some of the tools that you use, it looks like you're just very strategic and very structured. That's what comes across.
Yeah, I would, I think I've probably loosened up a little bit, but there's still definitely, I kind of follow the rhythm of the world in that, my work week is Monday to Friday. I could, take different days off and work on the weekend if I wanted to, but I don't. It's more convenient to work when everybody else is working. But typically I'm at work by, 9 or 10 in the morning, and I usually work till about 5. And I've got a wife and kids, and they need me in the evening, so I try not to really work or be too occupied with that kind of thing at night. But I definitely I try to keep a schedule where I'm actively working on something during the work week and that kind of thing, for sure.
Well, for those of you who are listening in, again, we are talking today with Seth Williams. Seth Williams, full-time land investor, bringing a different angle to the show today, and residential income property owner with, over a decade, almost a decade of experience in commercial banking as well. How does that commercial banking background benefit you with what you're doing today, you think?
Yeah.
Seth?
Yeah. I think it actually, that commercial banking was my day job up until over a year ago when I quit it just to do real estate stuff full time. But I would say it was very helpful, especially in the beginning when I was getting started. There were a lot of parallels just in terms of understanding real estate closings and laws around real estate and financing arrangements and how that all works. So it was definitely very helpful just in my own education. All the banking stuff that I did was on, big commercial projects, and that's not really what I do as a land investor. I'm usually focusing on smaller residential stuff. So I wouldn't say there's a ton of commonalities there, but just in terms of like the high level overview of how real estate transactions work, and the financing part, even with seller financing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was definitely very helpful, and I appreciated that, being able to work in that kind of career leading up to what I do now, because it really kind of set me on a good note for what I do.
Mm-hmm. Do you have staff working with you, or are you pretty much managing the business solo at this point?
Yeah, I've got a couple part-time assistants that help me. I don't have like full-time employees or a staff or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, there are some other bodies in the puzzle that are helping out with things. But I'd say for the most part, like all the integral things are being managed by me right now.
Wow, this is great. Now tell me, if there is one question that you get asked most from folks who are interested in what you're doing, more than any other question, what would that one question be? I'm wanting to make sure that I didn't forget anything that our listening audience would want to know. Is there anything that people ask you a lot about your business and what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Interestingly, I actually keep really good notes of whenever I get certain questions over and over again, because when I get that tells me pretty clearly, okay, I need to write a really detailed answer to this as a blog post and put it on the blog so people can find it, and I can send them a link, and I've already put the time into explaining it very thoroughly. So usually, I mean, I would say, I wouldn't say I get this question as much anymore, because I've written very detailed, instructions on how I do it. But back when I was starting, a lot of the questions that I would get would be around, how I find motivated sellers. Like, how do you find people that are seriously going to accept an offer for $500 on their land? Like, how is that really a thing?
Right.
And so I would say, the answer to that question is, getting a very targeted, specific list of people who own land and who are highly likely to want to sell that land, and then doing a direct mail campaign to them with a very specific type of mailer. And, I've got very, very detailed instructions, all free on the blog, so you can feel free to check that out if you want to know more. But that's a question that I know I had a lot in the beginning, and a lot of people have when they hear how this land investing thing works and they want to understand it further. That's the kind of thing that they want to know about. And, as a result, I've tried to explain that as well as I can through videos and that kind of thing.
That's a good question. And that's a very good use of the blog as well. Now, when you reflect over your career, Seth, is there one experience that you've had that you would consider like the most rewarding experience? One of those experiences that when you think back on it and you say, yes, this is exactly why I do this.
Yeah. Well, I'd say there's kind of two very different answers to that. I'd say like the first time I did like what I consider to be just a huge home run deal, where I was able to buy a 12-acre vacant lot on Lake Huron in northern Michigan. I was able to get it for $4,500, and then I was able to turn around and sell it for $45,000 a few months later. And it was, that was like, just such a high, just realizing like, oh my word, I can't believe I was able to do this. Like, it's just amazing. It blew my mind.
Wow.
That was definitely one of those, that's why I do this kind of moments. But on the flip side, there's lots of times, as I think any person is going to experience when they're getting into real estate investing, where, things just don't turn out the way you expected, or you just kind of get kicked in the gut, and it's just like, oh, this is not fun. Like, this is hard. And I would think, some of those experiences that I had in the early phases would be doing a direct mail campaign. I've even had this lately, honestly, where, you're working in a new market, you do a direct mail campaign, and the results just aren't there. Like, you put the time and the money into it, and you just don't get the kind of feedback and response that you were expecting. And I think one way to respond to that is, this doesn't work. I hate this. I quit. And the other way to respond is, I actually heard a quote from Nelson Mandela a while back where he said, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And when you look at it, when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, man, you really never do lose if you just take the time to understand, okay, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to happen differently here, because there's always a lesson, like a game-changing lesson that will make all the difference on your second try if you just take the time to sort of understand what that is. And inevitably, when I do have campaigns that aren't great, I mean, that's not telling me it doesn't work. It's telling me that you haven't quite dialed into the exact right criteria yet. And, inevitably, as I make some changes and alter my approach, the next time and the timing for that are great. And I never would have found that if I didn't keep trying and understanding, okay, if I do this exact same thing again, it's going to be bad again. So something needs to change. So I think just understanding that and embracing it and realizing that, these quote unquote failures are not really failures. They're just like directions on, don't turn here next time, that kind of thing.
Right. Wow. That is an incredible quote, first of all, and a great use of it. And that certainly is something that we could all apply to not only our businesses, but our lives in general.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Now, is there any one important thing that you wish someone had told you before you purchased your first piece of land?
Yeah. I would say, probably the first, panic moment I ever had in the land business was, when I listed a property and it took more than 30 days for it to sell. I know that probably, it sounds a little crazy in hindsight. That's really not that bad, But, I mean, but when you don't know when that buyer is coming, you don't know if it's going to take a day, week, month, or a year, and you're just like, oh my word, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I needed somebody to just hold my hand and say, don't panic, just be patient. Okay. The sky's not falling. Back then I didn't understand that, you really can sell, I don't say anything, but almost anything if you just, get the pricing right and that kind of thing. And, it's okay if it takes a year. That's kind of a bummer because that's longer than I would like it to take, but it's still okay. It's going to sell at some point. And when you buy property for basically nothing, even though it takes a long time, you're still going to make a profit when that does. And at the very worst, you're going to break even. So I think I would just say, if you're in real estate, specifically if you're in the land business, just be patient and don't panic and just allow it the time. And when things aren't, when buyers aren't responding immediately, maybe that means something needs to change. You need to make a better listing, get better pictures, offer different terms, advertise it in more places. There's lots of different things you can do to sweeten the pot and get more buyers to come along.
Now, I'd like to make sure before I close any show that I get the word out on top free resources that are out there. Do you have any free resources that you use? You are one free resource yourself through the RE Tipster blog, but do you have any free resources that you use and have found instrumental in conducting your business?
Yeah, absolutely.
That you can share with others.
Yeah. I can tell you on my blog, I've actually got a page that gets lots of traffic, and it's called Resources, where it just talks about all the stuff that I'm currently using. And some of the stuff is free, some of it's not, but it's a big list of everything that I've got. It's just retipster.com/resources if you want to check it out. But I would say if I had to nail it down to the top three, I'd say on the selling end, when I'm selling property, Craigslist used to be number one, just by far. I got the most traffic from that. But now I would say, Craigslist is still very good, but Zillow has also been a very helpful tool lately. They've got a free for sale by owner platform where you can list your property for free. And the site just gets lots of traffic, and they've got really good analytics where they tell you how many people are visiting, how many people are saving your ad. People can contact you through their ad. It's just it's a nice platform. So I would say, I mean, just those two, maybe two in one. That's a really helpful resource. Something else that is extremely helpful. I mean, I almost don't know what I would do without it. Is Google Earth. And when you are, especially when you're doing vacant land, when you're trying to get an idea for the slope of a property or what's around it, or the elevation or the GPS coordinates, or, I mean, I'm actually writing a blog post right now that talks about all the things you can do with Google Earth. And it's kind of amazing. Like, I can't believe it's free because there's like tons of stuff that it helps with. So Google Earth is a major, major help.
Wow.
And in terms of other free stuff out there, trying to see. I've got, I mean, there's plenty of things that cost a little bit of money, but in terms of free stuff, I would say maybe, trying to find one other thing. I know there's a website called a Rocket Lawyer, which is actually, it requires a paid subscription, but I believe I think you can do like one free document or something like that. It's been a long time since I first signed up for my free trial, but they've got a very, very solid system for like putting together documents. And I think, you know, there's other websites out there where you can buy like a blank template and then it's kind of up to you to fill it out right. But with Rocket Lawyer, they actually bring you through a step-by-step like questionnaire where they ask you, you know, what's the name of the buyer? What's the name of the seller? What's the purchase price? And you just answer the questions and it will generate the whole thing for you. So it kind of fills in the blanks and makes sure nothing is missed. And that's another website that's been, over the past year or two, like super helpful to me.
And what are you using it for? For your contracts? For your purchase and sale agreements? Or? There's
lots of different things you can use it for. I'd say probably like the number one thing that I've been using it for lately is whenever I need to like get a deed template for a new state, because as a land investor, a lot of times I will close deals myself, because when you're buying a property for $100, you know, it doesn't make sense to pay 3 times that just for the closing. So a lot of times I'm able to close them myself and create the deeds myself, and Rocket Lawyer can, you know, basically help you put together deeds in any state. And there's also like land contract templates and promissory note templates and operating agreements, trust, all this stuff you can do. So it's a pretty versatile platform.
Nice. Yeah, I have been on there, and I think there is something that you can do, something very limited that you can do for free as part of a free trial, and then there's a small cost for utilizing their services. But I've not signed up for that, so that's interesting. I'll have to look into that further. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Last I checked, I think it was like, I think the subscription's like $40 a month. But the thing about that is you can unsubscribe at any time, and as long as you're a subscriber, I think you can do like unlimited documents. So it's like if you've got 20 things you need to put together and you pay that subscription for 1 month, I mean, you could do a lot with that. So just the whole thing, you're not required to sign up for like a year at a time. You can, but you don't have to. So it's not mostly expensive. They needed it.
Good stuff. Now tell me this: what motivates you? For instance, for me, when I get going each day, I have some inspirational messages that I listen to, and there's certain songs that just, you know, or music that can, you know, get my blood going, and I'm excited, and I'm ready to conquer the world. What is it for you, Seth? What does that for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, honestly, I just thank God every day that I get to do work that I really love and look forward to. Like it's very common on Sunday night, I'll be lying in bed with just a huge smile on my face because I cannot wait to get to work on Monday. And something that was really difficult earlier in my life, I worked jobs that were just like awful. I mean, just terrible job. Particularly like right when I got out of college and while I was in college. And I know what it's like to just like suffer every day in your job because it's just miserable and you just can't stand what you're doing. And it's just it's a terrible way to live life. And I think some for me anyway, I mean, at the time I never would have told you this, but in hindsight, like it was kind of a gift because I mean, I know what it's like for work to be horrible and just not something you enjoy. And because I'm now in a place when I do enjoy it so much, it's just like it's a gift every day I get to do it. And I'm just so thankful that I've been able to get to a position where I can do this and, not just do stuff that I like, but also do really well at it financially. It's just it's an amazing gift. And I hope everybody gets there. It's a great place to be.
What a wonderful way to close our show, too. Thank you so much for your time, your inspiration, for your wisdom, for your knowledge. Seth Williams with us on today's show. Thank you for allowing us to peek into your world. Here's wishing you continued prosperity in the interesting dynamic world of real estate. How do our guests learn more and connect with you? If you could, again, let us know how to reach you, how to connect with your blog, and how to learn more.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I'm on pretty much every major social media thing out there. I mean, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Pinterest, all that stuff. So you can look me up there, and also, on the blog, I've got a contact page and also links to each one of those social media profiles. And, as any good blogger has, I've got an email list. So if you want to, I won't spam you, I promise. I usually send out like one email every couple of weeks or something like that. But
right.
If you want to just kind of keep up to speed on what's going on with the blog and what I'm working on and things that are helpful to me, that's another way to just kind of get a little feed from me coming to you every now and then.
Wonderful, wonderful. Seth Williams, ladies and gentlemen, with retipster.com. Thank you for joining us. I will continue to stay connected with you, and I know that you will have others to join you as well. And hopefully I'll have an opportunity to follow up with you again and do some things with, talk a little bit more about some of the items, your top items on your blog, because I, again, am one of those who has benefited from it, and know others will be delighted to connect and gain the knowledge that you share through your experiences on a regular basis. Thank you so much, Seth. I look forward to staying connected.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Felicia. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks. See ya.
This has been another episode of Real Estate Insiders Radio. To hear all episodes featuring our handpicked real estate insiders, visit us online at realestateinsidersradio.com.